Begin at the begin.
We try to end before the end, but that rarely happens. Ben accuses me of ending after the end.
That is not hack.
Ending after the end. That's so poetical.
I like to offer multiple endings.
Okay, yeah. I like an open ending.
There you go. End on a dot, dot, dot. You know, Peter Bogdanovich always said, start with a snap and end with a bang.
Okay.
Or maybe he said, start with a bang and end with a snap.
Okay.
Probably said something about ascots, which is all he ever seemed to wear.
It's true. It's true. But we're not here to talk about Peter Bogdanovich.
No, we are joined today.
Who are we joined today by, Ben?
We are joined today with Hisko Hulsing.
Hisko Hulsing, ladies and gentlemen.
On your left.
You're listening to Doc Walks with Ben and Keith.
Here on Doc Walks, not in Amsterdam, not at Annecy, not at any of the European locales that Hisko makes an impact on.
Not being nominated for a Danny Award.
Not any of those things. Just walking across the footbridge here above Lady Bird Lake in Austin, Texas on a hot summer day.
That's right. And I did warn you, Hisko, that we would be walking. And I asked you to please wear something that you could sweat in. And you said, don't worry, I have lots of black button-up shirts.
I really have 20 identical shirts. So it takes me about 10 minutes per year to do shopping because I always go to the same shop.
So you
Get my stuff.
subscribe to the Steve Jobs theory of you don't want to think about what to wear. You're going to basically have an outfit.
Exactly. It's one outfit. People can easily recognize me.
Yeah.
My neighbors know who I am. I have my hat on.
So you can save your brain space, your creativity for other outlets.
Exactly. Yeah. But then on the other hand, if I would like to shop, I would do it differently. But I don't.
So Hisko, we have actually met before.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't.
We met on the set of Undone
Really?
in season 1. So I came by because I have a project that's been in development for years now with Tornante, with Noel and Steve.
I heard about it.
The animated wolf show, yeah.
Heard about it. Yeah.
So you guys is the earliest days of Undone. You were still shooting in the office there.
And I was pretty uptight and busy, so that's why I forgot.
I wasn't going to say it myself.
I was in panic.
Yeah, but I've done somebody who's been directing 20 plus years and being on sets for 30 plus years. I recognized the moment. I said a brief hello and stepped back into the shadows. But it was exciting to watch the process unfold. And a lot we could talk about, but I want to jump right in to that moment and to share that show with our audience. And so that is the Amazon animated series. I believe it was the first adult animation that Amazon ever got involved in. It's called Undone. It's an incredible kind of psychological thriller, interdimensional, mind-bending kind of family drama.
Yeah.
It stars Bob Odenkirk and Rosa Salazar
and many others.
and many others.
Constance Marie and Cabral.
I became aware of that project before you guys had rolled even a single frame because my good friends Craig Staggs and Steph Swope from Minnow Mountain were kind of up for the job to help to be a part of the animation. That's how I met the producers, Noel and Steve over at Tornante. And then in a follow-up about a year later, I stopped by when I was in LA to see how things went on set. And so Undone is, like I said, all those things. It's a drama, it's interdimensional, it's psychological, but it's also a fully rotoscoped adult animation kind of thriller, and it's rotoed in a style that is very rare, very painstaking, and so beautiful it's hard to talk about. And you are the man behind that show. You directed all the episodes, you oversaw the animation process, and they basically relied on your art to kind of build out the show.
Yeah, so it was different from your film Power in that way that you used rotoscope too.
That's right.
Probably was the same team.
With a minimum to live.
Yeah. So we have something.
And we're going to get Craig Staggs on here one of these days too.
Cool.
So, yeah.
Oh, yeah, I met him a couple of days ago. Again, of course, because we worked together for a long time. So it was kind of a weird mix between an oil painted look, because I'm a painter also. I'm a director, but I'm a painter and I draw and make storyboards. So the basis of the film was the rotoscoping of the characters, and then all the backdrops were done with oil paint on canvas. So we had a team of about 10 painters from all over Europe that I trained to paint in my style So it was like almost like a 17th century atelier situation, your studio situation in Amsterdam.
And atelier means like
A studio, like
and you're mentoring people, right? Like you're sort of training.
well, I tried to. I was flying back and forth between Amsterdam and LA because I was like, I would be on set for 2 weeks directing the actors, and then I would fly back, and there was a team of 100 people in Amsterdam at Submarine who were, because the rotoscoping was done here in Austin, but then it was colored and all the special effects and all the storyboards designs, the paintings were done in Amsterdam. So it was in 3 cities, LA, Austin, and Amsterdam. And so a lot of Zoom calls, and this was even before the pandemic. A lot of Zoom calls, because during that whole period, I never visited Austin actually. He did everything on it. I mean, they came to the set, Greg and Steph.
Let me jump in here as the non-animator of the group and try to be a translator for our audience listening who probably doesn't understand a lot of the terms being thrown around.
He's calling our audience stupid.
Explain to me your process as if you were talking to like a room full of kindergarten. Okay. You film actors on a set.
Yes.
You take that footage and you do what with it?
So we film actors on a set, but the set is just a green screen space. So they're acting. I tell them that they're in a pub, and they act as if they're in a pub. You know, it's like a play almost.
Yeah.
So there's no set on the stage.
That's an interesting way to think.
Yeah, it's like Dogville. You know Dogville?
Yeah, sure.
It's very much like Dogville. So there's tape on the ground to prevent people from walking through walls.
The Lars von Trier film, Doggo, yeah, that's...
Yeah, the Doctor film. That is very similar to that. So we have the performances of the actors when that's edited and when that's locked, live action version of an episode. That's actually when a feature film, that would sort of be the end of the film and you would be finished. That's where we start. Really. That's where all the hard work starts, because then we have to animate it, make all the background paintings, do all the there's a lot of special effects in Amsterdam, because this film is about a young woman who wakes up from a coma,
Right.
and in a hospital, and when she wakes up, she's so confused. She's being thrown through the future, to the past, into dream states and strange psychotic kind of situations. And her father, played by Bob Odenkirk, he has been dead for 20 years, but suddenly he's back. And he tells her that he came back to teach her how to travel in time, to get back in time to prevent him from being murdered. So that's the thriller aspect. But at the same time, her family is convinced that she's schizophrenic. And her grandmother was schizophrenic. So it is the way I approached it as a director. It's not written by me, it's written by Kate Purdy, Raphael Bob Waxberg, and their team. They're the showrunners. But the way I approached it as a director was that I think the first thing I showed the showrunners before we started was the dream sequences from Rosemary's Baby.
Oh, wow.
Because what I love so much about Rosemary's Baby is that, yes, if you look at it from the outside, it's about a young woman who thinks she's pregnant from the devil, from Satan. Right. But if you look closely to the film, you see it's very much all point of view. It's all directed from her point of view, and she's very fragile and paranoid. So that's how I want to approach Undone, that the audience just lives the whole experience together with Alma, the main character.
Sure. Yeah.
And so it remains ambiguous whether she can travel in time or whether she was schizophrenic. And it remains ambiguous throughout the whole show. And that's what makes it so interesting for me as a director.
Using that style of animation allows you to do things like getting into the character's subconscious.
Exactly.
Avalon kind.
Yes.
Things that would be much harder to do where you're doing them back.
Well, the thing is, because it's animated, but it's also, I mean, the actors really look like themselves. So we maintain all the micro expressions, all the great parts of the acting are in there. But because it's animated, it's always kind of unclear whether what we're seeing is real or not. It's very unreliable. You know, so it's almost like a psychotic experience, because you're looking at things and you're like, did I actually see this tree? Or no, suddenly it's not there anymore. You know what I mean? It's very dreamlike and very psychotic. I would.
That was the word I was about to throw into the mix right there, is dreamlike.
Yeah, dreamlike.
And I have to say, like, for me, I became aware of this style of animation, I think like a lot of people, in 1999 when Richard Linklater released Waking Life.
Yeah.
And that is kind of the first modern feature film made in a full roto process, really since the 1920s or 30s.
Yeah.
And in that film, he literally kind of jumps from character to character, almost like a spiritual sequel to Slacker, but living in a world of dreams. People talking about dreams, people living their dreams, watching reality kind of dissipate or dissolve or break apart in front of your eyes.
Yeah, like how we're in the end scene where the main character just flows.
Just from the, but exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And so that sense of a dreamlike quality is fascinating to me, because I made a film 15 years ago with rotoscope animation, and it was just short segments of it. It was about blind teenagers. So a verite documentary about 4 blind teens. They all had sight and lost it during their teenage years. And I was trying to figure out a way to connect for an audience with the sense of losing your vision.
Yeah.
And in a little bit of the research I was doing for the film, what I learned is that visual perception, the way your brain takes in the information that your eyes are giving it and makes sense of it, decodes all this information, these billions and billions of whatever brain pixels you're getting.
Yeah.
It's the same part of the brain that processes dreams. And that's why dreams are so incredibly visual, even though, your eyes play no role in the dreams. It's like your brain is feeding itself this kind of visual language. And so the idea of
creating a whole world, actually. I mean, that's how I would. I'm sorry, let me finish your story.
No. I know well, that's what I was teeing up. And the only thing I was add to it is that in that same research, they said children who engage with cartoons, especially fantastical cartoons, it's the same part of the brain that kind of lights up. And so this idea of, and then one more thing that was added in there was deep memory. Yeah. Like the deepest memories that we have that have a visual element to it, right? It's the same part of your brain that is unlocked and that is firing up when you do brain scans.
Yeah.
So whether it's animation, cartoon relationship for a child, it's memory, it's visual relationship to the world, or it's dreams. Like they all speak this kind of the same language.
Okay.
And you capture that language, I think, kind of across all of those. Your show Undone is about these deep memories, right?
Yeah.
And it's about questioning what's real and what isn't, like a dream.
Yeah. Well, for me, it started way earlier when I'm from Amsterdam, and I started smoking weed at age 12.
Okay.
Marijuana, which is way too early. And then when we were about,
It's very young. Yeah. What is that like?
it's very common. It is, especially first grade of the high school. We have a different system, but anyhow, 12 is very young. And then when I was about 15, we had a plantage with 30 huge plants and tops like this, are unlimited supply. And that's where everything went wrong. So at that time, I didn't go, because the only classes I went to were philosophy and drawing, because that's what I like. And that's what I ended up doing, philosophy and drawing,
That's exactly what you do.
Yeah, but I was so stoned that I started working with oil paint that I think I was on the edge of psychosis. So I had kind of these delusions where I was hallucinating or sort of perceived the world in an oil painted manner or something. And I just kept on doing that throughout my whole career,
What's so interesting about that is I rewatched about the first hour of Montage of Heck in preparation for our walk today. Yeah. I'd seen it when it had come out, and I've forgotten how in a state of psychosis Kurt Cobain basically was as a teenager, largely for the same reason. I mean, there was a lot of familial neglect, them not knowing how to handle his ADHD and hyperactivity, but he was also coping by smoking a lot of pot.
Exactly, yeah.
And then that's how your animation
Came to life. Yeah, so for me, when they asked me for Montage of Heck, Brett Morgen, the director, when I heard the audio tape that it was based on, it felt to me like, well, this will be a home run, because this is my youth, so to speak, dropping out of school, smoking too much weed. But anyhow, so the whole, I want to get back to your question.
Okay.
Or your remark. And that's that the way I think animation can be very effective is by using it to show the inner world of people. So we all have this inner world, we dream, and actually it goes even further, like everything you see right now and that the audience sees, it is there. I mean, there's all these external impulses coming in through your senses, but then what you actually are seeing right now is a creation of your brain. That's true.
Yeah.
The brain creates a model of reality. You know, we perceive it as reality, but everybody has a different reality. We all are focused on different things. You know what I mean?
How does that reality shift when you're on the edge of psychosis?
Well, it becomes, well, especially when you're being scared, you know, things become very threatening. And I remember when I was smoking too much that I would see, for instance, a lamp, and I would be afraid that that lamp was actually watching me and attacking me. It's very strange, but I just think that animating, I mean, I saw a lot of comments of people saying, well, I don't dream in an animated version or something. You know? But that's not what it's about. It's more about that the animation by itself is already so unrealistic or so sort of artificial that we're telling the audience that what we're showing them is not reality per se. You know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah.
I hope I'm not being too vague for your audience.
No, I understand what you're saying. It's you're getting inside the head of character in a novel way, because then you are perceiving the world the way they are perceiving it.
Yeah, so that's what we're signaling to the audience and what they get, you know?
The idea of capturing the inner life
Yeah.
of these characters as a director working on a scripted series, right, with Bob Odenkirk, with Rosa and these other actors, are you collaborating at all with them? Are you inviting them into the process of kind of letting that inner life of their character? Because that's what an actor does, right? An actor takes the written word, the actions that are written, the dialogue that's written, but they add, or at least consult on and provide intent and behavior, right? So like when you're taking that intent and you're stretching it and breaking it open, you're taking that behavior and you're twisting it through these dreamlike moments. Are you talking to the actors as a director and kind of involving them?
Well, you know, I mean, Rosa Salazar played Elma, and she's an incredibly talented actress, but also very intelligent. And in a show like Undone, I was the director of all the episodes and the production designer. But whenever there were questions from the actors, they would, about their lines or whatever, they would ask Kate or Raphael, the showrunners.
Right.
So I had my ideas about it, etc. But at some point it was so, I mean, Rosa told me that one day in between shooting days, she was walking her dog and she was actually thinking that she was Elma, the character of the series, who dreamt that she was Rosa walking her dog. So she went, she's not a real method actor, but she really gets into her role so deeply that you get things that you don't, that are not on the page yet. You know, when you read, I mean, the scripts were already fantastic. You know, I remember reading the first 2 episodes in the plane back from San Francisco to Amsterdam, and I was already crying reading the script. So it was that good, you know. Then I storyboarded it together with my team, and then when the actors do their take on it, it completely changes everything, because something might look sad and then suddenly becomes cynical, or the other way around. You know, they and then actors like Rosa, they have this huge palette, is that the right word? Palette of possibilities. So they can do the same take in 10 different ways, and the meaning changes all the time. And then you can choose in editing, of course. Yeah. Acting is such a, I mean, I'm completely, like this week, I was also working with Sasha Peterson, a great actress who was also in Inherent Vice and Paul Thomas Emerson. And I mean, I'm so intimidated by actors. Really? Yeah, because, you know, I'm a painter and I use my tools. I have my brush, I have my canvas, I have my paint. Right. And I do certain different things. But their tools are their body, their mind, and their soul. Yes. And that's something I still don't really understand, how they're able to do that. And also it makes them a bit weird, because you never know if they're
being genuine.
Wait,
if you can do anything, then how do I know that this is...
Exactly. I remember Rosa, she was, like in the first couple of days of the shoot of Undone, there was one scene where she was crying at exactly the same spot in the shot. But she was also, the first time I saw her, she was hugging me. Oh, I love your work. She knew my work because her ex-boyfriend was a famous animator. And then I thought, well, she can cry whenever she wants. I mean, imagine her to be your girlfriend. birthday, you will get into trouble. I can tell you. Yeah, so.
Rosa Salazar, of course, from Alita Battle Angel, is one of her, had a lot of great roles, and she's a very physical actor.
Yes.
So I love to hear that, like you describing that she's an emotional actor and she's, potentially untrustworthy as a partner. I don't know. Can't speak to that.
I know about that.
Well, your backstory is so interesting to me in that you started painting.
Well, I didn't start painting. I was doing it when I started on Art Academy. I had animation as an extra course.
And this is in Rotterdam.
There was a real demo, yeah, exactly. So I could just, what I like, I'm not even that much of an animation fan, to be honest. I like feature films more. Like my favorite film, The Tenant from Ron Polanski, I saw it 26 times. So I'm that kind of, it's which film? The Tenant from Ron Polanski. But look at this, 26 times. That's the kind of films I really like.
Never seen it.
Yeah, I'm a fan of Knife in the Water and Rosemary's Baby, of course, in Chinatown, but I don't know The Tenant.
Oh, The Tenant, you should see it. He plays the main character, actually. And it's located in Paris. It's an incredible film. Okay. But anyhow, I've never been that much into animation, but what I love so much about animation is that I have a very broad interest. I also compose music for some of my films.
I read that, yeah. You composed an 18-piece work.
Yeah.
The score. Yeah, 18-piece work.
Yeah, for 2 different films. So I can sort of use animation as a container for all my interests. And then when I was asked to be undone, it was actually my proposal to do it as slot scoping, because I thought that, first of all, I can work with great actors in Los Angeles, with great writers, great actors. That's really a dream come true, come true. And the other reason was that if we would use the rotoscoping, we would create this blurry line between reality and dream, which really worked out well.
Which works well with the story.
Yes, with the story. So it was a great
Will you tell us the story of how you went from basically working solo, getting a cold email from Brett Morgen, and how Montage of Heck came about?
Yeah, so I made some short films. One of them was called JUNKYARD, and that was a film I worked on for 6 years. And there was one other animator, but I did 90% of all the animation myself. And I had some interns with coloring, but I was basically working on it for 6 years in a row. And when it came out, it won a lot of awards. And then I worked on a film by Tommy Pallotta.
Yeah.
That you know too.
That's right.
And also, he's also from Austin.
Austin, by way of Amsterdam these days.
Yeah. He lives in Amsterdam and in LA, but he's from here. Yeah. So there was a film that I did paintings on, and it premiered at Berlin Film Festival.
Which film is that?
Last Hijack.
Oh.
It's about Somalian pirates.
Okay.
And there's animated parts in it that I worked on. So when that film came out in Berlin, I was being very smart. I launched my film, launched my film on internet, on Vimeo 2 weeks before, and it went viral. And then while I was still in Berlin, because the film premiered there, Last Hijack, I got an email because Hollywood Reporter, I think, wrote about that film, and it said, with handsome animation by Hisko Hulsing / JUNKYARD. So Brett Morgen, he checked JUNKYARD, and he immediately emailed me like, oh, your film is same kind of raw energy that Kurt Cobain's story had, And I was the big Nirvana fan, to be honest. And that was because when Smells Like Teen Spirit became a hit, I just came out of a long depression. I haven't been depressed since then, since 30 years. But at that time, I was finally getting out, dancing to good soul and funk and having a good time. And then suddenly he started yelling, no, wrong timing.
You were like, I don't
know. Yeah, I know that thing. I've passed that, Yeah, so he contacted me. He said, well, we have 10 minutes of audio from Kurt Cobain, but we don't have images. And I love JUNKYARD, and I would love to cooperate on visualizing those parts for Montage of Heck, the first authorized film by Kurt Cobain.
And so Brett Morgen, of course, is a documentary hero, especially at the overlap of documentary and animation. Yeah. For me, I've had a chance to hang out with Brett a few times, and he's one of the inspirations for me in even using animation in documentary. Of course, he made Kid Stays in the Picture, the Bob Evans, which was, maybe the first almost fully animated doc that I had ever seen. A flat kind of 2D, After Effects slide around sort of styled animation. He followed that up with Chicago 10, which is kind of a play on Roto.
To your film.
It's a little bit of a play on Roto. I think it was a film that helped inspire when I was getting started on Tower and trying to kind of convince people that you could do this in animation, and that it was still a documentary if you took people's words and put actors into the scene and animated the actors, as long as all the words came from the original people. So that's Chicago 10. So it's not like outlandish for someone like Brett to reach out to you.
No.
But the style of animation that you employ in Montage of Heck, I think pushes far beyond what Brett had played with up until that point.
Yeah.
What kind of relationship did you have with him as far as developing the look and the feel of that?
Well, I was based in Amsterdam and he was based in LA, so we never met in person when I started. And he's a fantastic director, but he didn't really understand my process. So when I started out, I got into a lot of stress because I was, his producer kept on telling me every day, when are you finishing your first minute? But that's not how I work. You work with, first you shoot it with live action, then I had all these, we made all these heads in ZBrush. I made them in clay before to replace the actors' heads. So I made Kurt Cobain, ZBrush. There's a process where the first things that you show a director look like shit. Lastly. But he got very nervous.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, he was very nervous that this is not the film that I want from it, because he didn't understand that first phase always looks shitty in animation. So I tried to explain it to him, but I also made another big mistake, and he made a mistake too. He thought I was some kind of producer, Red Hall Studio. I'm not. I'm a struggling artist, basically.
Fell solo in your home studio.
Yeah. No, he gave me money, and I thought, well, I never, because when you make short films, the producers are in there when they raise the money and when the film is finished, but in between you're doing most of the work yourself. Yes. But now I had to squeeze 10 minutes of animation in 4 months.
Wow.
While it took me 6 years to make 18 minutes of animation. So I just hired a lot of people, and in the first 2 weeks, I thought that I was a genius. I thought, wow, this is amazing. I can completely plan it and remember who's doing what. And at the same time, I was making 60 oil paintings. Doing all the layouts, doing all the storyboards, shooting the actors, filming it, etc. And after 2 weeks, it turned out to be a house of cards that completely fell down. I thought I was getting a heart attack. Really, it was dead, horrible.
The Edge of Psychosis.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, because there was no way. The name of the episode.
If you haven't picked up,
Well, there's no way you can do all the creative work and do all the planning, etc., etc. It's not possible. And then be pushed all the time, So then a Dutch production company called Illuster, they stepped in and they helped me out. And Brett remained skeptical about what I was doing, but then after 2 months, I got a call from him, and I always got a little bit nervous because he was not really happy until that moment. Yeah. And he called me and said, yeah, we just had an audience test screening with about 100 people. We told them that they should not comment on the animation because it's not finished yet. And nonetheless, most of the people said it was their favorite part.
Oh,
And Courtney Love really loves your animation. And Frances Bean Cobain, the daughter of Kurt Cobain, really. So suddenly I get, was the Dutch expression, he puts a lot of feathers in my ass for a whole hour long.
Feathers in my ass.
That's the Dutch expression. And after that, he trusted me. And then when we met in Sundance at the premiere, he told me that the animation really elevated his film and turned it into a Rolls Royce.
without a doubt.
Yes, without quite. I mean,
Without a doubt.
I mentioned I'm rewatching it, and I hadn't seen it since it originally came out. And the scene that stuck with me is the scene where he describes his first sexual experience, and that's an animated portion of the film.
Yeah.
And I think it stuck with me because there's so many emotions happening in that animated sequence.
Yeah.
You feel his alienation, you feel his disgust, his sort of his emotional shift.
But also his disgust what's happening before when they visit the girl and they're harassing her. His friends are harassing her, and he's not really taking part in it. He's sort of watching it. And there's a lot of different emotions in that whole scene, I would say. Yeah.
Captured it really brilliantly, and it's such a key part of kind of unlocking who he was as a person.
Yeah. Well, it was based on, of course, the voiceover that you hear. Well, comes actually from a cassette tape that he recorded when he was 20 years old. So it's even before he got famous. He just made these collage, well, the collages and the sound collages, and he wrote stories that were partly true, partly untrue.
And he called that tape Montage.
The tape was called Montage of Heck. Well, Heck is another word for hell, I found out. But Montage of Heck, that's the name of the tape, and that became the name of the film. The thing that happened then was that a lot of people, when the film came out, I thought it was a very good film actually. I remember going to the soundstage at Warner Brothers where Brett Morgen was doing the final mix of the film. And I was really emotional because I worked so hard, and it started with a huge Universal Pictures logo, and I was, hey, I'm here at Warner Brothers. And then the film was really good, but Brett Morgen took a very bold decision that I appreciate very much. So it ends with this last live performance of Kurt Cobain at Saturday at the MTV, where he says so
unplugged, maybe?
Unplugged, yeah. My girl, yeah, don't lie. Let that go on, yeah. And then suddenly it cuts to black, out of nowhere. And then you see that the text that Kurt Cobain committed suicide. And when I saw that, I said, this is such a bold move. It will cost you all your Emmys. You will not win any Emmys. Because he could have softened it, made it more sentimental. No, he just cut it like that. You know what I mean? I love that move. It was very punk. Yeah. And I loved it, but I thought this is going to cost him all the big awards because people don't want to have that feeling at the end of a film where they say cut off. But it's the most truthful thing you can do as a documentary filmmaker. You know what I mean? Like, you just show what it is, suicide. It's just very brutal cuts.
Yes.
Wow.
And how it felt to fans. I mean, I was a junior in high schools, and I remember feeling punched in the gut and betrayed, and it's so sad.
When he committed suicide.
Yeah. So, and like that, like it was just like there was no clear ending. It felt like a very ambiguous, very hard feel.
Exactly.
I was a senior in high school, and I took a class at another high school the first 2 hours of the day. So the third period, I had to drive across town. So I heard it on the news, driving across town, walked into my school, saw one of my best friends, told him the news. I think I was the first person in my whole school that knew. Because
you were in the car.
Yeah, and we just ditched school and went and got in the car and drove around and just
it's the same thing. We ditched school and went and like smoked a whole pack of cigarettes out by the lake.
Just feeling all the angst, like angsting it up. You know, it was like you just said something I want to pounce on, which is the idea of like what's true.
Yeah.
Like truth and what's true is obviously at the heart. You know, this is a documentary focused podcast, and you do a lot of work that's across all different mediums.
That's also why I'm here this week, but I cannot talk too much about that.
Right. So you got a secret project in the works that we're not allowed to talk about.
Which is sort of a documentary.
Sort of a documentary. Where do you see, for you, what's the difference between presenting on screen or through art? What's true and what's true?
Well, you're a documentary filmmaker, so you know that whatever you do, you're creating your own vision, of course, of what's true and what's not true.
Yeah.
You know? I mean, that's true. And I'm not a documentary filmmaker in the sense that I ever made a real documentary. I did animation for documentary, so I was also another one who made the decision to do that. But I think the way we talked about it with Brett Morgen from Montage of Heck is that what is the emotional truth of what we're telling? That's a very important thing. So for instance, the stories that Kurt Cobain told in those states are made up partly. So we were attacked later on the internet and everywhere. People saying, well, that's not what happened. Kurt Cobain was not sleeping under a bridge, etc., etc. But if you look carefully in how we animated it and how we did it, we are countering what he's saying. So for instance, he's saying like, yeah, and I went to the train rails and there was a train coming. I lay on the rails with a piece of cement on my chest. We're not showing that. We're showing him sitting next to a trail. You know what I mean?
Funny.
So we were.
I noticed that. Yeah. Last night when I watched it, I was like, wait, no, he said the blocks are on his chest.
It's not there.
Sitting next to the block.
Exactly. So it was mostly Brett Morgen being smart about it and parts of the audience not being smart enough to notice it. You know what I mean? But so that it was more about the emotional truth of what we were telling. And also, of course, I think, I don't know if this is an answer to your question, but like getting to the core of what's going on. You can do that with animation, like make kind of a summarization of the essence of what's going on. And of course, with animation, it's a bit tricky because people know that that it's artificial by nature. It's being made by people. It was not there at the core. So you're taking a risk, I think, when you take animation or use animation, but it can enhance the power of the film. So for instance, one of my favorite examples is A Waltz with Bashir.
Yes.
Oh yes. So that film works as an animated film because it is actually about the memories of a veteran who lives in Israel and fought these wars. So it's about trying, and you go back in his dreams to find out what actually happened. And then the film ends with real images of what happened in Shatila and what's it, the place where all the people were killed.
Oh, it's
Yeah.
Well, if you see, you suddenly see the real footage, and it hits you like a hammer because you've been looking at this internal world, and suddenly you see the reality, and it makes the reality look even harsher than when you see it on the news. That's the other thing. We see so many horrible pictures coming out of war zones all over the world, and we sort of get numb to it. You have to, because you cannot sit in a corner every day and cry about what's going on in the world. So you get numb to it, and I think animation is a way to create a new window on that reality and make people sort of look at it with fresh eyes. That's how I see how animation can help in telling a story and showing people another way to look at things that they got accustomed to reacting in a certain way. That would be my way.
It's disarming.
Is it? Yeah.
That's the word that always kind of comes to mind when I think about animation. And I want to push back on one thing you said, only because you said it's a risk, because it's got automatically people see that it's artificial. But I think that that's one of the great strengths of using animation and documentary, is that it admits from frame one that this is all perspective, right? This is all a subjective viewpoint expressed by either a singular mind or a team of collaborators, a little bit of both usually. You get to present a point of view.
Yeah.
Which in documentary, like, there's a lot of purists that'll tell you that's not what documentary is about, and yet we all know that it's impossible to pull a camera out in a situation and to put footage into an edit program and to project within a rectangular screen at the end and not have made, a million choices.
I think that's
subjective.
The magic about editing. And I love editing, and sometimes like even cutting out 5 frames changes the meaning of what you tell.
That's right.
So we all know that the editing is storytelling and filling it in and creating perspective. So I see what you mean. And then so when you use animation, you're just being more honest about it.
I think it is more honest. I really do.
Says the two animators.
Yeah. Well, honesty in documentary, honesty in art is up for debate in lots of ways, right? You have a new film, Danse Macabre.
Yeah.
It just premiered at Annecy in France. Annecy, if you don't know, is maybe the world's greatest animation festival.
It's the largest animation festival in the world. It's like by far. So all the big studios come there, DreamWorks, Disney, Pixar, every country has a booth there. And there's the festival and there's the market. And it's really the place where I thought I would have to premiere my film, like I did with my previous films. And this time I was wrong, I think. But
well, so I know there's been some controversy. Can we talk about that?
yeah, sure.
Well, let's get a quick summary on Danse Macabre.
Okay.
Before we get into the controversy. And we'll let you guys judge how you feel about this once Hisko shares his experience. But let's talk about Danse Macabre. What is it? How many years did this one take?
Yeah.
And kind of what's the central nugget?
Yeah, walk us through the process.
Yeah.
Because I read about this, and that is fascinating, how difficult this was to make.
Okay, so I started 11 years ago on this film. It's just a 4.5-minute film. It's based on the second part of the 10th Symphony by Dmitri Shostakovich, a composer who lived under the terror of Stalin during the USSR, how do you call it?
Soviet Union.
End times. And that film inspired me to make this film because I saw a rise of fascism in Russia, and this sort of new wave of, trying to make Russia great again, to restore their empire. It was what Putin was pushing. And then, of course, those thoughts went overseas, and we had Trump here with Make America Great Again. It's kind of copy-paste and all the populist movements in Europe were doing the same thing, like let's stick to our national identity and get the foreigners out and that kind of stuff. So the film is not really about that, but it was inspired that idea that in order to get all the people go your way in this kind of fascist way of thinking, you have to rehabilitate a lot of old war war criminals and people like Stalin. I mean, suddenly he was rehabilitated in Russia, etc. So my film is about the resurrection of fascism, the resurrection of militarism, and about the absurdity of war. But it's an animated film, completely based on that music from Shostakovich, in the way that music was used in Fantasia by Disney. So it's no sound effects, no dialogues, just music
And images.
and images, and it's a very, I would say, epic and apocalyptic nightmare. That's what it is. It's a nightmare about war.
Okay.
I didn't intend it to show the reality of war. It was about the fears of these apocalyptic movements that are going on right now.
What little bit I saw was like skeletons and
Yeah.
jackboots. And
Yeah.
Yes. Like
Yeah.
not at all photorealistic.
No, it's all painted. So the thing is, I started 11 years ago. I made 79 huge oil paintings.
79.
Every shot is based on an oil painting. And it was a very expensive film to make. So we found co-producers in 4 countries. So the Netherlands, Belgium, France, and Hungary that raised money to do all the animation. So we had a team of 80 people, of which 30 animators who were animating all the skeletons, the tanks, the horses, all that stuff. And when I started out doing animation 30 years ago, this was before Windows 95 even. So I worked on 35mm film on a rostrum stand with cells. So I was testing on a Commodore Amiga, And every time there was this new technological development, like Windows 95, and then some, I would always use every new technique I could to use for my animated film. So, because the basis is always the oil painted backgrounds. I paint in a very, let's say, classical style. But the characters are always animated either with pencil on paper or digitally. And to make them look the same, I developed all kinds of techniques. And 2.5 years ago, I saw what might be possible with AI tools, or as we call it then, machine learning tools. There we go.
The controversy kicks up. I'm going to jump in right here. So, we were talking a lot about Roto, talked about Waking Life, we talked about Montage of Heck, talked a little bit about Tower. All of these films are made using a digital process, but it is a hand-rendered digital process. So you have human being artists sitting at a computer console, typically at like a Wacom tablet. And they've got like a little Apple Pencil kind of deal, a little stylus in their hands. And they're looking at video footage or photography, typically, of a character, and then doing what amounts to like a high level of tracing over it. And so it is frame by frame, time consuming. It is one step different than the way the Disney animators who use rotoscoping, like for like the dancing hippos and various characters and Cinderella and whatnot. But it's always been a hand rendered process. And when it became a digital hand rendered process in the late 90s and early 2000s, whether it's Bob Savaston or Jason Archer or Craig Staggs or you, one of the things you always have to kind of explain to people is that even though it's a digital process, it's a human process. Now, and that's what you've done all these years. Now with Danse Macabre, you see an opportunity to expand your repertoire into a new toolkit.
Yeah, but only very limited. So again, everything was painted by me. Everything you see is painted by me. I mean, everything that's not moving. And then what's been moving has been animated by people not using AI, using traditional tools like Blender and Houdini, like the regular 3D software. So the only thing I did, it was a very small part of the process, was train a model so we could give those skeletons a texture as if I painted them. That's what we did. That was the only thing we did. It was shaded. But I used the word shading, and I regret it now, because those people who are not from animation think I lit the whole film using AI, which is not true. They are called shaders, but I should have used the word texture. That would have made the discussion. I made a couple of mistakes like that I couldn't really predict, because I didn't know what was going on. But so I released a trailer 1 week or 2 weeks before Annecy, before the world premiere. And the trailer went completely viral on Instagram, TikTok, X. It was viewed 4 million times, over 4 million times. And people were like, wow, amazing, best thing ever. 200,000 likes. But then suddenly I saw, a lot of them were bots, but a lot of people saying, oh, this is AI slop, AI slop. And people started to dig into it on Reddit and to show that some parts were done by AI.
Yes.
But I already had made a making of in which I explained that whole process. And that's just a big problem of these days. It's what people like Trump are taking advantage of, is that people are just not doing any research.
Yeah.
They just copy each other. It's spreading misinformation. There's a making of. I hope you can sort of put a link in your...
I'd love to.
That's what I saw, actually.
Oh, you saw the
You
making?
shared that with us.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. The painstaking process that it
Yeah.
shows.
All the work, the tens of thousands of work that went into this film. And I'm very proud of my film. And I don't know if it's a masterpiece or not. I intended to make a masterpiece. It's my life work into 4.5 minutes of animation. And then people, like thousands of people on the internet, call it AI slop.
That's
And the horrible thing about it is that I was just on the verge of a shift, because I just read today that some executive from Netflix just announced that in 300 of their productions they used AI tools.
300.
So I was just one of the first to admit it, because I have nothing to hide. We trained the model on my own paintings, and we used it for a little part of the process. So what happened?
Yeah, so I want to just interpret that really quick, because I know you're used to talking about it, but having just like...
Sorry, and I'm very passionate about it.
Yeah, well, I want to just translate it a little bit for our audience.
Yeah, of course.
So you premiere the film. There's some controversy.
There was a planned protest. So people were already you have to see it like this. There's this huge room. Have you been in Annecy?
no.
Okay, so
My film played there, but I didn't go.
oh, you should. There's this huge room with 1,000 people in it, an audience of 1,000 people. And even before my film premiered there, people were handing out anti-AI stickers outside or outdoors. When my film started, my film was the last film in the block, about 100 or 200 people started walking out. I was like, what's going on? I don't understand it. And some people were booing before the film started, And then when the film ended, there was this huge group outside. They started booing, and there was this woman, and she was shouting, "This is the end of art! Fuck you! And shame on you for using AI, taking our jobs." So I stood up and I said, "Listen, I didn't take any jobs. 80 people worked on this." She was screaming this while the end credits were going on. It was crazy, But nobody heard it because there were boos so loud.
People worked on it in the credits.
You could see it while she was shouting, But people couldn't hear me because they were booing me. And then I don't know if it was a mistake, but my name was announced by the announcer. I got up, they started booing again, and I said, "Thank you and fuck you." And maybe this middle finger here, I will put a frame on it someday. Almost. Oh well, we have to be more. Yeah. No, I don't want to look too aggressive but it was just like, if they're booing me, I'm booing back with my middle finger. I wouldn't do this normally. Somebody should cut it out.
I feel like I want to stick up for you a little bit because of what I understand. And again, as the non-animator of the group, it feels very small where you did in terms of
Yeah.
And actually, a guest friend of mine, a guest friend of ours that we had on recently, Isaac Gale, did a similar process where he took a lot of archival images of his documentary subject, created his own internal private Morage equation. I put it in as a
Model. He created a model based on only an archive of that character.
They call it Laura. Yeah, but he, as a filmmaker who had been making this film for almost 10 years, had acquired of this archive. Some of it was this footage, some of it was what he had acquired from the estate of the artist. And he created this animated sequence using an AI model that was totally private. It didn't scrape anything. It was,
Well, that's not completely true. But
sort of, am I correct in understanding that that was similar to your process?
Well, I think it is similar, definitely. But I think the only thing that the protesters, they do have a point somewhere hidden. That's that. But they just don't know enough about the subject to know what they're talking about. All the AI that's now being implemented, all stages of society, in Google, Meta, everywhere, it's all being trained on scraped data from the internet. Everything, there's no exception. So I was using a program called Stable Diffusion as one of the many programs that is known to do that. But the thing is, so there should be let's say, there should be new laws to compensate the people whose data got stolen. But I'm not in charge of that. I don't know what went in there. I cannot know that. Do you see what I mean? So I trained the model on my own paintings, but the reason why that whole model can work is because of billions of data be scraped from the internet. That's just a fact. My proposal would be, if I would be a lawmaker, there's no way you can hold me accountable because I didn't steal anything from anyone. I didn't copy somebody's style. If I would copy, let's say, if I would make a copy of Snoopy, I could be sued.
Right.
If I would have used AI or not. But what I think should happen is that AI companies like OpenAI, all the other ones, should be forced to create funds to support artists and everyone who feels that they've been stolen from, because there's no other way you can do it. But I would fight for that. I would fight for copyright. But I don't want to be the target of the discussion because I'm just an artist creating my own style with my own painting. So in that way, it's very similar to what your friend.
It's an impossible situation that we face right now to kind of like know where to stand because it's the sands are shifting so quickly, right? Yeah. To me, I always break it down between a question of generative AI and AI tools. And so, and this is a very naive perspective, so feel free to push back. Generative AI to me is AI that is scraping style, technique, texture, the communication of visual language that has existed since the dawn of man, from literal cave drawings and etchings to, the most modern, digital styles. And it's making every one of those styles available to somebody without the skill or the expertise or the experience to know to tap into those. AI tools are cutting out steps in the process that are allowing the creative mind who's seeing the vision they want to get to the end, get there a little faster, a little more economical, a little more efficient.
Well, I want to
please.
say on that because that's the other thing. It was not, I didn't do it for economical reasons. Actually, it added a lot of complexity to my process and very hateful. I hated the AI part. I fucking hate it. It's so fucking hard. I think I should get a medal. Me and my partner should get a medal for what we did because it's so fucking hard. There was no economical motive at all because we could have used what we call shaders, texturing in the 3D programs. And then it wouldn't have looked as good as I wanted, So that's the other thing. So I see what you mean.
So what was the upside? If it wasn't economical, what was it?
Well, they didn't know. They just thought, I think my mother said it the best. My mother's always right. She said, if you look at the trailer, it looks so fucking amazing that people are like, this cannot be done by human beings. But she's my mother, of course.
She's a little biased.
A little biased. But she has a point though, because it is very epic, and it feels like, and now people are so used that they put in some prompts and then something comes out. And if they would really know what they were talking about, they knew that would be absolutely impossible. So, but I see your distinction is very right. It's the difference between like copying somebody's style using those tools or using the tools as a tool as part of your pipeline. And I'm planning to keep on doing it actually because the tools are so fucking amazing.
Well, that's the thing. I think we're all doing it all the time. I think we're doing it even people don't even realize they're doing it. Like AI tools, that is. If you are going on to, I've talked about this before on the podcast. I have a project where we had to scan a bunch of documents and put them into Google Drive just for organizational technique. And in the process of scanning documents and putting in Google Drive, Google Drive said, oh, by the way, would you like a synopsis of what this document is? And we said, oh, okay, sure. Gave us a synopsis. It was pretty accurate. Said, do you want keywords to make it searchable? It's like, well, sure. Now, did that make our lives easier? In a way, it made our lives easier. Did it steal jobs? In a way, it stole jobs. It didn't steal jobs from artists. It stole jobs from interns, from production assistants, from researchers, and from producers who would be tasked with creating a short synopsis of what each of the documents are so that we can find them when we need them. I don't feel bad and people aren't making the same argument that we shouldn't be using those kind of AI tools, right? So should we not make use of those organizational tools because they are streamlining a process which is taking a human element out?
I have some thoughts about it. So the people who were protesting me mostly, both in Annecy, also on the internet, are students. And they have a reason to be scared because what's happening is that the entry-level jobs are disappearing. So how do you get into a business if there's no entry-level job? So they have a point there. But protesting AI is not the way to go. What they should be doing is trying to get hold of those tools and see how they can incorporate it within their own filmmaking process or animation process because
They can bring it in and then help us learn how to work in it. But
yeah,
that's the thing. Sorry to interrupt, but like you're saying that AI was hard to work with. That's been my experience too. Anytime I try to do something creative with AI, it takes so much prompting and so much babysitting and so much back and forth.
Well, if you get it right, you can't get it right again.
No. Right. It's only once. Yeah, that is, no, well, yeah, so the guy I worked with was actually programming constantly so we could replicate some things, but every shot needed programming or new tools. It was fucking horrible. But what I'm saying is that if you have a company and you need to hire people, I think from 2 years from now, people want real animators to fill those jobs. But if you don't know anything about the AI tools, you will probably not get the job. So that's what I try to tell people in Annecy. Like, don't be so anti-AI. AI is not going away. You can protest the rain, but the rain will not go away. It's here to stay, and that's it. And I don't want to be, I never wanted to be part of this discussion because I made a film that I'm probably one of the people. I'm a real craftsman.
You're a craftsman and you're a humanist. Like the work that you make, every title that we've touched on, and there's more that we haven't, gets to what's the heart of the inner life of the human experience. And so I do think you should get a medal, and I do hope that you can present the film without protest. But I'm glad that we have an opportunity to have this discussion. It's a different discussion that's going to be had 5 years from now, 10 years from now. The ethics are being lined up and written. We're all a little bit right and a little bit wrong right now.
I mean, the environmental impact is very real and scary.
Yes.
Like our water usage and how that's going to go and where we're going to generate enough electricity.
It's a huge discussion. It's discussion on like government top level. I don't feel I can be a part of it.
But don't you think that it's true that
two computers running? What are you talking about?
one of the things about being an animator is you're constantly educating people on process. I know, like, since I've worked in animation, people kind of come to me, filmmakers come to me, seeking information about how do I use animation. And so much of the time what they're looking to do is to cover up bald spots in their production. They're looking for B-roll that they couldn't track down. And it's a huge mistake, right? Like, that isn't when animation serves the greatest purpose. Animation is an opportunity to dream.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's a beautiful way to put it.
That's very nice.
Yeah.
All right, we're going to have to wrap things up here. I feel like we can keep talking, and I'm so curious to know about your...
This was the bang that you were wanting to end on.
Right? There you go. Start with a snap and end with a bang.
There it is. All right, I love it. We do it lightning round at the very end, so let's see how quickly...
Let's walk and talk.
Or you mean? Oh, we have to go back to Flames Puff. Okay, sorry.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, so our lightning round consists of 3 questions. So the first one is, what was the gateway drug film that you saw that made you want to do this work further?
And I'll broaden out to just say any visual art.
Yeah. Yeah, well, the thing is, if you ask an artist a question like that, there's probably a million answers to that, because I've been influenced by so many different...
You've been scraping great art your whole life.
Yes. Well, no, that's true. I've been scraping art like a huge living and breathing copy machine. I mean, I don't know if you're aware of the meme theory by Richard Dawkins in his book called whatever. That's another subject. But I think that the film that sort of got me interested in animation as a way to show the inner world of people was Pink Floyd The Wall.
Oh.
That was the film, I was obsessed by that film when I was 15, 16 and stoned out of my mind.
You're really stoned, speaking to you.
And that film, I think it's not even 10 minutes of animation, that film, but it feels like you're getting into the head of this guy, through the animation.
Oh, I see the parallels now with the Jack 8s and the...
Yeah, also, that's a big parallel with that film there. It's also how I pictured it, like a mix between Pink Floyd The Wall, Fantasia, and Goya, the war drawings. Yeah. It was just a way to picture it because I had different...
Goya's paintings are a big part of the project I'm working on.
Really?
Yeah. Goya is the madhouse.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I'm working on a film about Ingmar Bergman. And he was obsessed with this one painting by Goya.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. Anyway. Okay, so that's the gateway drug for you, Pink Floyd The Wall. Okay.
So, yeah.
I'm going to ask you, what is your dream collaborator? You've had a chance to work with Shostakovich. You've had a chance to work with Brett Morgen. You've had a chance to work with Kurt Cobain. You've had a chance to work with Bob Odenkirk. Who is a dream collaborator that you haven't had a chance with yet, living or dead?
Well, I'm a huge fan. I think Roman Polanski's older films, like the what they call the apartment trilogy, so The Tenant, Rosemary's Baby, and Repulsion. Those are the films that that sort of informed me as a live action director. I'm not a real live action director, but that's how I approach films. So Polanski, but he's...
I was going to say, not afraid to court controversy on this particular episode of Doc Walks. I don't think we're going to touch the Polanski of it right now.
Well, like, I can imagine, like, Paul Thomas Anderson is one of the greatest living directors right now, but he's not the kind of guy who would cooperate with me, you know what I mean? He's doing his own stuff.
Well, once he sees this, it may change his mind.
Yeah, who knows? Well, but he's incredible, you know. I'm such a... And also the Sasha Peterson, who had just directed for the last 5 days, she was in an Inherent Vice by Todd Thomas Anderson, so I could sort of pick her brain about how he's directing. And because the thing is, when I started doing animation, I didn't have any formal film training. I didn't do film academy.
Yes.
So, and then Boogie Nights came out, which is still one of my favorite films of all time. Even though it has all its flaws and everything, it's such a great film. So I started listening and reading interviews by Paul Thomas Anderson. He didn't do a formal education either.
Right.
And he just said, like, yeah, I listen to the audio commentaries, I read interviews. So I learned that from him, just to watch as many shows as possible, analyze them, read interviews. So I feel, and he's a bit older than I'm, 2 years or something, so I feel akin to him in the way that he's a much better filmmaker, I would say, but just somebody that also sort of learned it from scratch or by himself.
That's cool.
But he's so much in control of everything. Oh, it's incredible.
He's a master.
He's a really
Last question. We're hoping for aspiring filmmakers and students and people working in your first films. What advice do you give to those, Chris?
My advice would be to, especially in these times now, because we don't know what AI is going to do to our society, to our profession. My advice generally, it depends. You know, if you want to be a studio animator, maybe in Los Angeles you should be specialized in being somebody who rigs or something, or lights.
Rigging.
I think it's a bad idea. I think because you don't know if rigging is still a profession in 2 years. What I would say is try to widen your horizon as much as possible. Try to learn, study classical arts, study fine arts, study music, study as much as you can. Study film, study animation, because it makes life much richer. I'm not rich in terms of money, but I have a very rich life. I'm never bored. There's no way I can get bored. There's so much to do, you know what I mean? Playing piano, I'm not a good piano player, but I do play piano. I draw, I paint. It makes life rich. And
don't go for a walk at July in Austin in the middle of the day when it's hot outside.
yeah.
Try to connect to your boss. Is that a new part of it?
We try to melt people if we can. Just melt them down to the bare essence.
Well, this has been fantastic. Thank you so much. Yeah, it was great. Is there anything that you want to talk about that we didn't cover? Like, should we talk about where people can find your work? Where you do next?
Let's see. So, no, I would love people to see Danse Macabre, but it is for American audiences. It's not available yet. I would love people to, even if they can watch it somehow, to watch it and give me an honest opinion on IMDb and Letterboxd. You know why? Because this army of anti-AI idiots, they're very similar to the anti-vaxxers. They sort of, how do you call it, bombed reviewed my film, gave it all a half a star without seeing it. You know, it's very horrible.
We're going to put the making of Danse Macabre in the show notes.
Great.
So I hope you guys will track that down. Undone, there's 2 seasons. It's an incredible show. Should have been more. That's still up on Amazon. Montage of Heck, and of course, to the great Brett Morgen. We get Brett on the show.
Oh, we didn't even talk about
Dream of Dust Cats? Thank you. They're on Netflix. Yeah, so sorry. The Sandman. So
right.
The animated 11 bonus episode of The Sandman. It's very beautiful, I think. We did it with part of the team of Undone also. So it's also all painted, everything. It was fantastic. And in a way, it's funny because you don't really have to watch the first 10 episodes. You can, but I mean, you don't need it to watch the 11th. It's a standalone story.
Yeah.
But the second season starts with being at a cave, going into the cave, and it ends with coming out of the cave. And the whole show is sort of nodding is not the right word, but it plays with the idea of Plato's
allegory.
Plato's allegory.
Yeah.
And then I was working on that season, and I was working on A Dream of Dust Cats, which also takes place in the cave. And suddenly I was like, geez, I'm the caveman.
Well, this has been a pleasure, Caveman. Thank you. Thank you very much. It was nice.
Let's go. So glad you're here. Yeah.
Next time on Doc Walks, I walk solo with first-time director David Liu. David left a job developing artificial intelligence to make his first documentary. It's an incredible conversation that I hope you stay tuned for, so stick around for next week's episode of Doc Walks.
Doc Walks is created, produced, and edited by my friend Ben Steinbauer of The Bear.
Hello. And my friend Keith Maitland of Go Valley. With help from our co-producer Dayton Thompson and editing by Riley Church. Follow us at Doc Walks Pod on YouTube, Instagram, and LinkedIn.